people that didn't go to college have a pretty good rage on their hands. That's what you really want in an election is a rage. It can be black rage or white rage or rural rage. In this case, it's rural rage. They are so angry at the liberal establishment, the coastal elite. They look at people on television, they say, oh, those people on Saturday Night Live, those snarling rich kids, I know who they are. They're all trust funders. They don't have to worry about us. And the regular guy in the country goes, there they are snarling and making fun of us again. And every time we make fun of Trump, we're making fun of them. That's the weird, it's a weird thing.
So that is what's left of Chris Matthews. So look, is he right that there's rage in politics? Yes, a lot of people are mad. Some for good reason, some because that's what an entire media apparatus has been designed to create in them. But the idea that thus you should try as hard as you can to not make these people mad, and I mean you, SNL cast? Like that's what he's focusing on. The idea that like, how dare SNL accidentally enrage these people? SNL, like if we're gonna focus on them, has always criticized politicians. Yes, they criticize Donald Trump, they do quite a bit, but they also criticized Obama and George W. Bush and Clinton, and they've been doing that from the very beginning. And that's what comedy does. It comments on the world, and politics is a part of the world. And I would also point out that like the people who I guess out there in rural America who he says are so mad about SNL, they're also the sort of people that do like other comedians who have specials named Triggered and stuff like that about how we should stop being so sensitive about everything. So I feel like there's a couple of mismatches here in terms of values, but I will turn now to the professional comedian. Aida, what do you think about this and the role of comedians in commenting on politics?
Well, first of all, I want to dispel the myth that that those kids on SNL are trust fund babies when I have friends like Leslie Jones and Marcelo Hernandez and Melissa Villaseñor who've been on that show that had to build themselves from scratch, from nothing. And to make it there has been a very big deal for them because they don't come from privilege. The other thing is that, first of all, as a person of color, as a woman of color, I am triggered by the term white rage, because white rage has been raining down on people of color since they got here. So when you hear the term white rage, what y'all angry about now is you've been angry about our existence since the beginning of time. And I'm not talking about all white people for the dummies who are going to say that I was making a blanket statement about all white people. But the white rage that's been raining down that you can attribute to, the mistreatment of Asian Americans in this country, the tragedy that has been the treatment of Black people in this country when it comes to immigrants, white rage has rained down upon other white people, poor white people. So when you want to tell people to not upset, not stir the pot, it's like, no, the pot needs to be stirred. The problem is that you can't say the truth anymore because there's always a lie with a bigger camera and a bigger microphone to combat truth. So comedy has been one of the only ways that people have been able to get out information, and now they're coming for that. Because if you paid attention, they're trying to censor comedians more than they were politicians, because they know that comedians can actually get to the people. But I'm being held to a higher standard than Donald Trump. That's ridiculous. That's deflecting. That is always steering away from the actual issue. There have been comedians Johnny Carson used to make fun of all the politicians. Mm-hmm. It's nothing new. It's who it's coming from that's bothering you. When George Carlin was challenging the conservatives, he didn't get the backlash and the hatred that people who challenge conservatives today get. I get told to stick to comedy, but the same people who tell me to stick to comedy list George Carlin as one of their favorite comedians. It's not so much what's being said, but who's saying it. SNL has women and people of color now, and they always have had people of color, but they got a lot more people of color and women that are participating in the writing and the jokes. And a lot of these people are stirred up about it. They're not so upset. They weren't so upset when only white men were doing it or were the ones that were getting all the play. But I don't want to hear this corny white dude tell me that SNL is the reason why we have the problems in this country. He could have used that time to hold the people who are in charge, our public servants that we employ that have been misusing their power and our funds, and hold them accountable and stop wasting time talking about SNL.
100%. You know what? I think you covered the comedy side of this so well that I'm not even going to try to add on to that. I will just say that, look, there is a lot of rage out there. You know, our politics does feel very extreme. Everybody jumps to the biggest, craziest version of everything, including him, because you'll recall that Chris Matthews is the guy that implied that if Bernie Sanders ended up being the nominee, that people like Chris Matthews would be marched to Central Park and executed by the commies or whatever. So again, he's a part of what's generating rage, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
The idea that we should place that on the shoulders of like Keenan or something seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, but
anyway.
When you say white rage, you make it the same as black rage, and they are not the same. And that is what the problem is for me, because the reality of it is that the white people can travel the world without the issues and fears and concerns that black people have, which they can't hide from their blackness. So when you make that false equivalency, and that's not to say that white people don't have problems, white people don't have issues, white people are not mistreated. That's not what I'm saying. But when you say things like white rage, the segregation continues to try to cause more division. The white rage is valid when you say it exists like that. And that's not okay. It's not okay.
Well, and also, like, is there rage inside of every race? Sure. But there is only amongst white people rage inspired and maintained, stoked by millionaire white people who want them to be enraged.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.